I thought love could erase the past. I thought I could walk down that aisle with a secret buried deep. But the closer I got to saying I do, the louder my guilt screamed. What if telling him the truth ruined everything? Or what if hiding it cost me everything? Hi, I'm glad you're here. If you've ever loved someone so deeply it scared you, or if you've ever carried a secret you thought might break everything, this story is for you. Don't forget to hit subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. Let's walk through this journey together. Before I met him, I was someone I barely recognized, someone I had quietly learned to live with but never truly accepted. My past wasn't clean or simple. It was messy, full of choices I'm not proud of, and moments I spent years trying to forget. I had learned early on how to survive, how to pretend, how to hide the parts of myself that made people uncomfortable. I kept my head down, smiled when I needed to, and never let anyone close enough to ask questions. It was easier that way, safer. Because deep down, I didn't think I was worthy of the kind of love people talk about in movies or books, the kind that sees you, the kind that stays. I used to tell myself that love wasn't for girls like me, not the real kind anyway. I was used to temporary, to transactional, to complicated situations that never turned into anything good. I kept walls up, not because I was strong, but because I was afraid. Afraid that if anyone really knew the truth about me, they'd walk away. And I couldn't bear one more person leaving. But something shifted the year I met him. Slowly, almost without realizing it, I started to want more for myself. Not just love, but peace. I began to wonder what it would feel like to not carry this weight around, to not wake up haunted by the past. And for the first time, I saw a version of myself that wasn't just surviving, but healing. Still, even as things got better, I kept my secret buried. I convinced myself that what he didn't know couldn't hurt him or us. But what I didn't see back then was that love doesn't grow where truth is missing. And the truth, it always finds a way out. I wasn't looking for love when he walked into my life. Honestly, I didn't even believe in it anymore. I was just trying to live quietly, make it through my days, and avoid anything that stirred up old memories. But life, in its strange and unexpected way, had other plans. We met at a small bookstore cafe, not the kind of place you expect to meet someone who changes your life. I was tucked in a corner with a tea and a worn-out novel, and he was the kind of person who brought light into a room without even trying. He asked if the seat across from me was taken, and before I could even say yes or no, he was already smiling. It wasn't a pickup line. It wasn't rehearsed. It was just real. That's what stood out to me, his kindness, his calm presence, the way he listened when I spoke, like every word mattered. He didn't make me feel like I had to be someone else. I didn't have to impress him or hide behind a mask. And that scared me more than anything, because the closer someone gets, the more likely they are to see the truth. We started meeting more often, coffee dates, walks through the park, sharing stories under city lights. And I started laughing again, really laughing, in a way I hadn't in years. For a moment, I let myself believe I could have this, him, us, a future. So I told myself the past didn't need to come up. I wasn't that girl anymore. But deep down, I knew. Love built on silence doesn't stay silent forever. And every smile I gave him came with a whisper in the back of my mind. What if he finds out who I really was? Falling in love with him didn't feel like falling at all. It felt like coming home, like finding a place I didn't know I was searching for. He made me feel safe, like I could breathe without second-guessing every move, every word. He was gentle with my heart in a way no one else had ever been. And I loved him for that. Maybe too quickly, maybe too deeply, but it was real. We made memories that felt like scenes from a quiet love story, late night phone calls that turned into early morning laughter, sharing songs, childhood dreams, and silly fears. He learned the way I liked my coffee. I learned the way his voice dipped when he was nervous. We started planning trips, talking about someday, like it was already within reach. But beneath all of it, every hug, every kiss, was a growing shadow I kept pretending didn't exist. My past. There were moments when I almost told him, like when he said he wanted to know everything about me, or when he looked me in the eyes and said he trusted me with his whole heart. I wanted so badly to say, "There's something I haven't told you." But fear always won. I'd smile instead, kiss him softly, and push the thought away. I convinced myself it wasn't the right time, that I'd tell him eventually, after the next milestone, or the next one after that. I thought if I waited long enough, the truth would somehow become smaller, easier to say. But love doesn't erase the past. It just gives you a reason to confront it. And the deeper we fell, the more I realized I wasn't just hiding my past from him, I was hiding part of myself. And sooner or later, that part was going to speak. I remember the night he proposed like it happened in slow motion. We were at the lake, our favorite spot. The sun was setting, painting the sky in soft orange and pink. He took my hand, looked at me like I was the only thing in the world that mattered, and said, "I want forever with you." And I said yes. I said yes with tears in my eyes and love in my heart. But I also said yes with a secret still buried deep inside me. In that perfect moment, as he slipped the ring onto my finger, my heart was pounding, not just with joy, but with panic. Because now, it wasn't just a relationship, it was a promise, a commitment, a life we were about to build on something incomplete. The days that followed were a blur of congratulations, planning, and little moments that should have made me feel like the luckiest woman alive. And I was happy, at least on the outside. But inside, I was drowning in guilt. I started waking up in the middle of the night, anxious and breathless. I'd look at the ring on my hand and wonder if I deserved it. I'd stare at him across the table and wonder what he'd say if he really knew me. The version of me he loved was only part of the truth. Every time we talked about our future, our wedding vows, our dream house, our someday kids, I felt like I was lying by staying silent. I told myself I'd tell him before the wedding. I had to, but I kept pushing it. Tomorrow, next week, after the invitations go out. I was running out of time and excuses. And the truth, it wasn't going anywhere. It was just getting louder. There's never an easy way to say, "This is who I used to be," especially when who you are now feels like a completely different person. But my secret wasn't just a single moment or mistake. It was a chapter of my life I had tried to close and never revisit. Before I met him, I went through a dark season. I was in a toxic relationship that broke me down, piece by piece. He controlled me, lied to me, and by the time I left, I barely recognized myself. I made choices during that time I still carry shame over, things I did just to survive, to feel seen, to escape. I lost people. I lost myself. And then came the worst part. After I finally left, I made a decision I've never spoken out loud to anyone, not even my closest friend. I had gotten pregnant, and I made the difficult choice to end it. I wasn't ready. I was scared, broken, alone. It shattered me. I spent years rebuilding, therapy, distance, forgiveness, mostly of myself. And by the time I met him, I had become someone stronger, someone softer, someone with hope again. But the past didn't disappear. It just waited in silence. That's what I was hiding from him. Not because I didn't trust him, but because I didn't want to see the love in his eyes change. I didn't want him to see me differently, to think I was damaged, to walk away from the life we were building. I told myself it wasn't his burden, but deep down, I knew if I wanted to be truly loved, all of me loved, I had to stop pretending those parts didn't exist. Because healing doesn't mean forgetting, it means being brave enough to be fully seen. Every day that passed, the weight of my secret grew heavier. I could feel it in my chest during quiet mornings. I could hear it in the silence between our conversations. Even the joy of wedding planning started to feel hollow. It was like trying to decorate a house with broken walls underneath. There were moments when I came so close to telling him. Once, we were sitting on the couch, laughing at an old movie, and he looked at me and said, "I've never felt this safe with anyone." My heart cracked right then, because if he only knew, he might not feel that way anymore. I started avoiding deep conversations. I pulled back in small ways. I smiled through the guilt. He noticed, of course, he always does. He asked if I was okay, and I'd say, "Just tired." But inside, I was fighting a storm. I even tried writing it down, what I wanted to say. But every time I picked up a pen, my hands would shake. What if he walked away? What if everything we built fell apart the moment I opened my mouth? I talked to my best friend, finally. She knew pieces of my past, not all of it. I asked, "Do you think he could still love me after?" She paused and said, "If he truly loves you, he will. But he deserves to love the real you." That hit me hard. I started thinking less about losing him and more about what kind of life I wanted to live, with truth or with fear. And that night, I decided something had to change. I couldn't keep pretending. Love is about being brave. And I was tired of hiding. It was time to tell him everything. I'll never forget the night I finally told him. We were sitting in the kitchen, just the two of us. The world felt still, too quiet, too heavy. I had barely touched my food, my mind spinning with every version of how this could go wrong. He noticed, of course. He always notices. "You've been somewhere else lately," he said gently. "What's going on?" I looked at him, really looked at him. This man who loved me without conditions, who wanted to build a life with me, and I knew I couldn't lie anymore. Even by staying silent, I was lying. My voice shook as I began. "There's something I need to tell you before we get married. Something I should have told you a long time ago." He sat quietly, eyes steady, waiting. And then, piece by piece, I unraveled. I told him about my past, the relationship that broke me, the things I did just to survive, the pain, the fear, the shame. I told him about the pregnancy and the choice I made. I told him everything I had buried so deeply, all the parts of me I was afraid would make him run. When I finished, I couldn't look at him. I felt exposed, like I had handed him all the fragile parts of me and waited for him to crush them. He didn't speak right away. The silence was unbearable, and then he stood up. For a moment, I thought that was it. He was leaving, but he didn't leave. He walked over, knelt beside me, took my hand, and said, "Thank you for trusting me with your truth." Tears poured down my face because in that moment, I didn't just feel seen, I felt accepted. Maybe, just maybe, love really was stronger than fear. Even though he didn't walk away that night, I could still feel the tension in the air. After he told me thank you, he held my hand for a while. But then he said he needed some time to think. And I understood. I told him to take all the time he needed. But the moment that door closed behind him, my heart sank. That night was the longest of my life. I sat on the couch, replaying every word I'd said, every pause, every tear. Was I too raw? Too much? What if I had overwhelmed him? What if he was regretting everything now? My mind wouldn't stop racing. I barely slept. Every sound made me think he was coming back, but he didn't. The next day, I went through the motions, brushing my teeth, answering texts, sipping coffee I couldn't taste. I kept checking my phone over and over, praying for a message or call. Nothing. That evening, I started rehearsing what I'd say if he ended things. I told myself I'd be okay, that I'd made peace with the truth. But deep down, I was breaking. I had finally let someone in, completely, and now I was preparing for the worst. It's a strange thing, waiting for someone to decide if they still love you once they've seen the parts you've always hidden. You feel powerless, bare, and yet, even in the fear, I felt something else too, a strange kind of relief, because for the first time in years, I wasn't pretending. The truth was out. No more hiding, no more lies. Now it was in his hands. All I could do was wait and hope that the love we built was strong enough to carry the weight of who I had been. He came back the next evening. I heard a soft knock at the door, and my heart nearly stopped. When I opened it, he was standing there, holding a small paper bag with my favorite lemon muffins from the cafe where we first met. His eyes looked tired, like he hadn't slept much either. We sat down quietly. He reached for my hand, and for a long moment, we didn't say anything. Then he looked at me and said, I needed time, not to judge you, but to understand how I could love you better. I broke down, because I wasn't expecting that. I was ready for him to walk away. But instead, he leaned in. You are not your past, he whispered. You're the woman I fell in love with. The strong, honest, beautiful woman sitting in front of me now. And I still want to marry you. That was the moment I truly believed I was loved, not for being perfect, but for being real. Love didn't erase my past. It met me in it. It saw all of me and stayed. And in that moment, I knew we had something deeper than just romance. We had truth. And truth is where real love begins. After that night, everything didn't magically become perfect, but something important changed. The weight I had carried for so long was finally shared, and that made all the difference. We started talking more deeply, not just about the past, but about how it shaped us. He asked questions, not out of judgment, but out of love, and I answered them, not with shame, but with honesty. I could finally breathe around him, fully. I didn't have to hide anymore. Together, we built something stronger than before, a love that wasn't based on pretending or perfection, but one rooted in truth, forgiveness, and grace. He showed me that healing doesn't have to be done alone, that sometimes the right person helps you carry the parts you thought would always be too heavy. There were still hard days, moments of doubt, moments when I looked back. But he stood beside me every time. He reminded me, we're in this together. And for the first time in my life, I believed it. This wasn't just love anymore. This was partnership, trust, home. We weren't just planning a wedding now. We were writing a future that included all of me. And that was the greatest gift of all. If this story touched your heart, please share it. Secrets can feel like chains, but love, real love, sets us free. Don't forget to subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and tell me in the comments, would you have told the truth before the wedding?